living in Ghana in the U.S., and it was just interesting.
Oh, yeah.
We are AM 1370 WLTH and on the FM dial 92.7 W224EA.
Hey, you guys,
Indiana.
how you doing, Facebook? Welcome to We the People. It's October 13th, 2022, and it's John Allen, your host. I'm with Mark Hutnick, local investor. And we have a good program tonight, and we're airing also live on WLTH AM 1370. So tune in if you're a radio listener, and if you're on Facebook, we're just gonna stream all the way through the radio program and let you guys sit in as if you're here.
And I thought you were ready to give up.
Ours was the first revolution in the history of mankind that truly reversed the course of government. And with three little words: we the people. We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route and how fast.
At 30 seconds, we're about to count down. So, Mark, what's your favorite real estate deal, or what's your favorite category? Single-family homes, commercial, multi-units?
Well, I've been mostly single family.
10 seconds.
I don't know what it would be like for multifamily other than the one that
You
we
just did. Yeah.
But
5, 4, 3, 2.
Good evening, region in Northwest Indiana. This is your host, John Allen, with this week's episode of We the People, the radio podcast. And today is October 13th, 2022. And we have guest tonight, Mark Hutnick, a local real estate investor. We're going to talk a little bit about real estate. We're going to talk a little bit more about real estate. We're going to talk a little bit about money. So, and we're not going to sugarcoat the investing in the real estate. So we're going to talk about it at a beginner's level, and we're going to talk about a little bit of the intermediate experience, and then maybe we talk a little bit about goals in the end. And we're also going to take some calls in case you guys have any questions. I'm going to allow Mark to introduce himself, tell us a little bit about himself, when he started in real estate, and what is his current, and maybe a little bit about his current project.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on here, John. Good to be here. Mark Hutnick, 32 years old, Northwest Indiana. Right now we're in Westville, so hopefully to be Valpo soon, but been investing in real estate for about 5 years now. Didn't think I was going to be a real estate investor, kind of fell on my lap kind of thing, and hit the ground running when I found out that it was kind of my niche.
Okay, so you have any preference for properties or types of investments?
So far what I like now is what I'm kind of known for is some full gut rehabs, the stuff that you chop the tops off, add second stories, burnouts, stuff that has been abandoned for many, many, many years.
Okay, so I gotta ask, right? So we look at these HGTV programs that are edited, cut, and paste, looped together. And it can be fun, especially if you're working with crazy people like Antonio. We know you out there listening. Antonio, I call him Antonio the electrician. Yeah, but anyway, sometimes it can give the general public a misunderstanding about the difficulties or challenges to do full gut rehabs. What do you say about that? What's your opinion on that?
So just when you go into these projects, a lot of them have many, like they're hoarder houses, abandoned hoarder houses that have many water problems, mold problems and just rotted problems. So when you're walking into these, you don't know exactly what you have until you get all that stuff out of there and then start building from scratch. So um, I like them because it's a more of a step-by-step process. If you do like partial rehabs, you run into you're going to take down a piece of drywall and you find out behind it there's framing that has to be done.
Right.
When you do full gut rehabs, you know you're going to be doing that, the framework and stuff like that. So once you get everything out and you get all the rot and mold out of there, it's step-by-step process with framing, then the next step of plumbing or electrical or
HVAC.
foundation, stuff like that. There's no jumping back and forth after you start. After you get the whole project demoed, there's no, you don't jump back and forth.
So would you say a full gut rehab product for you as a business person is probably an easier or better product to offer to the public?
Yeah, there's nothing hidden behind the walls that you didn't see. You took down all the walls.
Timelines.
Oh, okay. So let's talk a little bit about timelines. So I know you probably couldn't give a guesstimate average, and it varies because I do rehabs too, so it varies from circumstance to circumstance. But if you had to say it was a general timeline for average rehab, what would you say would be a reasonable timeline?
When I first started, my timeline was 8 weeks, but it was 8 weeks because I only had 1 to 2 projects going on at a time.
Okay.
Now that I have multiple projects, 8 to 10 projects going on, I like the timeline to be about 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
Depending on the size of the house. Now, if we're getting into a house that's 3,000 square foot and it's a full gut rehab and you're doing a lot of roofing and foundation work, it's going to be longer. It's going to be 8 months. But for the most part, I like 3 to 4 months on timelines.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about math, right? So let's say we had a 4-month timeline. What would be a good net on a flip that you're doing in a 4-month? I know it would vary depending on where you're at and how you acquired the house, but what would be a base to make it worth tying up 4 months of your time and effort into a flip of a single family home?
So when I'm looking at projects, if I can't net 30 grand at the end of it,
Right.
I try to walk away from the full guts. Now, if it's less than the full gut, then I will take less profit.
All right,
But,
so
yeah.
So you hear that, folks. So think about this. In 4 months or 5 months work, in 4 months you get about $7,500 a month for yourself, for your effort. So it's worth doing. So I'm saying that to say that I've had people walk up to my projects and they would look at the house and they say, what the hell would drive you guys to go out and do this house? His house was terrible. It was raccoons in here gambling and playing cards before you guys come over here. You cut down all the trees around. What would make you do that? And that's a good sum of money. If you worked part-time and you did 2 of those a year, that's good money. So this is the logic in some people doing that. But somebody like Mark, you're doing it full-time now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I randomly fell into full-time. When I got my first flip, I quit right away. I didn't know I wasn't going to go back to work though.
Right.
I did it to first start off with being part-time.
Now, it's interesting you say that. It's a gentleman that I know named Rafael Riaz, and I mentored him, and he worked at a casino, right? And when I was mentoring him, and after he did his first flip, he got his second house. He did his first flip. I forgot how he acquired. I think he acquired in a traditional transaction, but he took the money from the first flip and was able to acquire 2 properties, and he leased one, flipped the other, and he walked away from the casino.
Yeah.
And quit working there. And he calls me out to his properties now. He's doing one over in this neighborhood west of 5th. I think they call it Brunswick, right? And his last house he did was on the east side of Glen Park, and he still got rid of it for over $100,000.
Yeah.
And he got it off the tax sale for about $4 grand. I'm not gonna sit here and sugarcoat this, just say those are stories. But if you're driven, you're serious, you have access to mentors and access to information, this could be done by many people. I would say if you commit yourself and tie your shoes up, 6 out of 10 people that I meet can probably do this.
Yep.
Would you say that's a good rate?
Yeah, I mean, most people think they need to have the skills of actually swinging a hammer on the house.
Right.
That's not the truth. You don't actually have to do that.
Right.
If you can confidently talk to someone, learn their situation, and get the house at a decent deal or seller financing or whatever it is. There's 1,000 different scenarios. You don't actually have to swing the hammer. You just have to be able to manage the crews. Really.
And if you could swing a hammer, it really helped. It helped in negotiating deals. It helped when you first starting off because you and maybe the partner, you guys can go in there and finish the painting or something or hang the cabinets for the budget. But I want to go back for a second. It was something that came to my mind when we were talking about the not the financing. We were talking about leaving work, right, and doing this full time. And I was thinking to myself that the market, right? So there's room in the market for the market is not saturated with flippers, would you say? With people out doing flippers. There's a lot of people that want to do it, but
everybody wants to flip.
Right.
Everybody I run into, they want to flip a house.
Right.
Not everybody pulls the trigger.
Right.
Even if they have all the information, it's still really hard to pull the trigger on your first flip. So there are a lot of flippers out there, but there's still plenty of inventory out there. You market a different way than I market. So there might be a house here or there that we do battle against to fight to get that house. But for the most part,
there's room for everybody right now.
Yeah, your leads are totally different than my leads.
Okay, and we were talking about information. Earlier, before we came on the air, you said that you had some advice to give someone that wanted to start doing this. And I was telling you about my history of experience, people telling me, give me $399.99 and I'll teach you this and this, and the other. But you were saying maybe go to real estate events and meetings.
Yes.
Right? Talk a little bit about that.
So when I first started in real estate, I had no clue there was real estate meetups in Northwest Indiana, Chicagoland, and South Bend. But there's actually, I want to say there's 3 in Northwest Indiana. There's Maryville, Cherville.
Nicaea is one.
Huh?
Nicaea.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, they meeting tonight.
There's Ignite. They just opened up in Maryville. There's one in South Bend. I don't know the name, but they're all over. That's where you learn. That's where all the resources are. You have money guys there that are strictly looking for you to give you money on your deal. They don't know how to swing the hammers. They don't want the headache of the contractors. All they want to do is give you the money so they can get a good return. So they're there. Contractors are there. Wholesalers are there with deals. Like that's the key. You have a question, there's someone there to answer that question for you.
Speaking of questions, don't be shy about calling in. Our number is 219-885-1371, 219-885-1371. Call in, you have a real estate or investment related question, and we'll try to answer your question, or maybe if you have a comment about the state of the real estate market. With that being said, every show, I try to raise a little bit of awareness, or I bring up an issue, a topic that's relevant to the economy, particularly the local economy. And I was looking at the interest rates, and I understand that right now, the mortgage rates right now on today, I mean, as recent as October 10th, a 30-year fixed mortgage rate is 7.04%, decreasing 2 basis points from a week ago. So if you're looking to refinance your home, the national 30-year refinance rate is about 7.07, increasing 3 basis points for over last week. So the rates are going up, and I have a friend that just closed on a house maybe about 4 months ago, and I don't think he paid 4 points. So that's not good, really, that the rates are going up, but it's not a reason to get in. We got a caller? We're going to take our caller. Caller, how you doing? Can you hear me? Thank you and for calling We the People.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Speak up.
Will you speak up, please?
Yes, my name is David Thornton, and I have a question. Simple question. I'm noticing an uptick in development in Gary. Is Gary a good place to flip property? And more specifically, Mark, you said that you walk away from properties where you do not net 30K on a flip. Do you think you can net 30K on flips here in Gary?
Yes, you can. Gary is a great place. First off, there's different kind of investments in Northwest Indiana and all over the country. So what I look at, you can have the areas like Highland, Munster, Crown Point where you're buying high dollar houses and selling them for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Gary, it has two great ways to invest. It has very high cash flow when you do a rental. So there's houses here in Gary there's two I just recently got done. We picked one up for $20,000 and the second one we picked up for $30,000. I turned them both into rentals, but I could have sold them by flipping them. So I think our on the one that we bought for $20,000, we probably put 50 in it. Our total right there is 70,000. I believe it appraised when the appraiser came out for the bank to do our cash out refi. I believe he appraised it for 130 or 140. I think it was 140. So right there, if I would have sold that after paying realtor fees, I would have been well over my $30,000 net.
Well, speaking of which, I think, and Dave, we're gonna take more comment from you, but keep this in mind. Right now, they're saying that 10% rate of return on a rental property is good on average, right? I have rental properties in Gary giving me 27.
Yeah.
Almost 30.
Yep.
Considering how I acquired the property, what I put in it, and the fact that, and the unique thing about Northwest Indiana for some reason, rent rates will go up even in areas where the property values are not going up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gary is a very good spot to start investing. You can get in at a very low price. A lot of the Gary houses here are full gut rehabs when you want to buy them for $5, $10, $20,000. But again, if you're swinging the hammer yourself, you're putting in a lot of elbow grease, sweat and tears on that thing. You can be all in very, very low cost. And as long as you bought it on the proper street, which I can't tell you which streets they are because I'm still learning Gary, but you buy it on the proper street, you can definitely net a good return on that. If that does fail, rents are still really good in Gary, so you can at least go to a bank and get your money back out of it, and then cash flow very high every month.
Okay, so I'm thinking that the fact that Gary is off the shores of Lake Michigan is that this is prime property. This is now the time to get into flipping, buying houses in the Gary area. So I guess my question to both John and Mark is, do you have a vision of the future of Gary? When we're doing these deals and flipping houses and trying to bring up the community, do you have a vision for that, or is this a strictly business investment? What's your thoughts?
You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
All right, let me say something.
Okay.
The views expressed by the hosts and callers of this show are not necessarily the view of WLTH management, owners, advisors, and sponsors. Okay. Now let's go.
All right, so most of the lakefront in Gary, Indiana is taken by like the steel mills, power plants and stuff like that. The pricing of the housing, like in Miller Beach, Gary, has already blown up to where you can sell houses for $400,000, $500,000, or probably even more. I've never done a flip there. Me personally, for Gary, right now, as I'm just getting into it, it's strictly for investments only. I do love the town of Gary, or the city of Gary. The housing here is great. They have nice, huge, all brick mansions that you just don't find anywhere else. That's what I love about Gary. But me getting into investing in Gary was strictly for the cash flow, but it is growing on me pretty quick.
Okay. For me, those who know anything about me, I've been here a while. I've been doing the real estate for over a decade here, and I did my first business here in mid or late 80s. So I would love to see the town progress. However, at the same time, I have to keep my feet planted, and I have to pull the trigger so we can cash flow, because right now, I was just having a conversation with someone the other night, and we were talking about approximately over $100 million being invested into Gary by the federal government. And I was explaining how that's not really a lot of money. If you divide that by the population, it's probably less than $1,500 a person, right? And so I'm saying that to say that technically, with the 50 square miles we got, with the geographical assets we got, the expressway, the potential frontage road, the potential tax base we can create, the land that we can develop if we accelerate our teardowns. This town can have a budget where we're touching 150 million every 90 days as far as, the town budget. So we have a long way to go, but I'm optimistic, with regard to the housing specifically, because that's what the program is about tonight. I would like to see more policies that encourage population growth. So any policy that encourages population growth, I'm for, and I think that would directly affect how the housing market goes in the future here with the population growth. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I know Valpo and Portage has a lot of new construction, but I would be interested in seeing Valpo's last 5-year population growth year after year.
I couldn't tell you what that is. I do know that, especially in the downtown Valpo, they are doing new commercial build-outs and tear downs, and a lot of people don't like the idea of that. I kind of do like. I like the more modern look, but all of the residents that have been there for a very long time, they do not like to see change. So
Valpo is turning into Northwest Indiana's Naperville. I think.
Yes.
They have a little bit of everything now, whether it's pizza, raw oysters, sushi, rooftop dining, burgers, craft beer, and in the square.
Journeyman Distillery is going there too.
Right, When I go to the square and they have the live bands, it's not all local. The only thing local in the square sometime on a Friday night is the statue of Orville Redenbacher, the popcorn guy. He's from Valpo, and he has a statue there where he's sitting on a bench. But I would love to see that happen to Gary. I would love to see that happen, and I think it can actually happen better. I think we can be the alternate and rival downtown Chicago. We can say I wanted to go see a show, Frozen, and it's booked up, and it's at the Cadillac Theater or Cadillac Palace Theater in downtown Chicago. But it's also playing at the new theater next door to the casino, next door to the Hard Rock. I would buy the tickets to the Hard Rock even though I live in Chicago, and I would come here. Let's say we had on the west side of Gary, right across the border, say we had a 14, 20 screen theater where you can dine in. And if I was an Illinois resident, I would come here to that theater instead of mine because it won't be crowded and the traffic. Maybe if I'm going home to Orland Park or Oak Park or Evergreen Park. So, I think we have nothing but upside with that being said. But I like to see those things happen because they affect the housing directly.
And what let me just say this, I'm going to get off the call.
Take your time.
And you brought up some good points. Both of you, Mark and John, thank you for your explanation. But I also agree with you, John, if I'm not mistaken, the Gary Port Authority, just reopened last year. There's funding to expand the Chicago Gary Airport. So I'm just thinking that there's a lot of positive things happening in Gary, and now is the time to get into the housing market, flipping houses, the things that you guys are discussing. So if you can expound on that a little bit, and I'm going to get off the call. Thank you both.
Okay. Well, I know in one of the shows I promised that I would bring up local financial indicators, and I had talked about the tax sale, and the tax sale is over with. But here I got copies of all the bids from the batches, and I got a copy of what every house that sold went for, right? But one example I wanted to give you, it was a property that was listed, the tax bill or pass-through tax bill was $2,300, and the winning bid was $25,600. I have another one here in front of me. The face amount was $2,863.81. The winning bid was $41,201, and that was in the 3600 block of Jefferson, and it's an abandoned house. So I'm even seeing, I'm also seeing the price of the empty properties grow over time, over the years too. So that's a good thing too. That's on the rise. Hopefully we get in a situation where the list for the county, it'll be so much scarcity that the list would include 5,000 or less parcels on it. So hopefully we see a day where that happens.
Yeah. What did you say that was on there this time? 25,000?
There was 12,000 properties on there this time.
Okay.
Right? And that's not good in the sense that in the last 7 or 8 years, it's almost always double digits. And I know a lot of it is vacant lots. Some of them are repeats. But again, the cure to that is a multitude of things. But I'm gonna bring up 3: ramping up demolition, joining 25-foot wide vacant lots together as 50s, because that would entice a developer to do townhomes or regular standard size home by today's market. And lastly, pushing as much as you can those past due properties that are recyclable or livable into the hands of people who can pay property taxes. That everybody will win. Everybody will win with that. So with that being said, I'm going to mention again, our phone number is 219-885-1371. And I'm inviting people to call in. And do we have another caller? Okay, well, we're going to take a brief break at this time. And we thank you for tuning in to We the People. And we'll be back shortly with Mark Hutnick. Got anything else you want to bring up?
How long you need?
3 minutes. 3 minutes or less is fine.
Okay.
Like how do you? I mean, we can bring up like how I got started in real
Questions
estate.
about your health?
You know,
Well,
Let's talk about